Welcome back to the Wrist Check Podcast. You're in for a special treat this evening. If things look a little different, it's because the check cleared.
Yes.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
Before we get into our guests, allow us to introduce ourselves. My name is Perry.
And I'm Ben.
And I'm Rashawn.
And we make up the Wrist Check Podcast. Tonight, we have a very special guest, our friend, Adam, former head of strategic planning and partnerships at IWC.
Thank you. Not head, manager.
Manager. Okay, sorry. Yeah,
strategic planning partnerships.
Same
I would have taken that role if they.
I bet you would.
Yeah, if that was on the table. But it's great to be here with you guys.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us this evening. We're going to have a lot of fun getting to your background and your experience in luxury and watches. You've got a really interesting story. I think it'll be fun to get into that tonight. But before we do that, we have to have our honorary wrist check.
Mm-hmm.
And as is tradition, and it is his birthday this evening, Rashawn, the man who never repeats a watch, is going to kick us off. What do you have in the wrist, sir?
I'm sorry, guys. For my birthday, I'm disappointed.
We are repeating the watch?
I am repeating a watch.
Say sorry. Apologize to Tristan's wife now.
So I have to apologize to Tristan's wife because she does look forward to my wrist check. And so this one was very interesting because I was flip-flopping between wearing a new watch.
Mm-hmm.
Decided not to. Tried and true, the Omega Speedmaster Snoopy.
Nice.
I love it.
It's becoming the usual suspect. One that I enjoy to wear a lot, especially when I'm not wearing the Paddock. So, checks all the boxes. I've shared my, love affair with this piece and, just happy to continue to wear it.
That's beautiful.
So what made you wake up on such a special day and pick that watch?
I think just how I acquired it, just from a special friend. And, I just felt like I was doing a service to myself to choose this watch.
Okay.
And so I was like, yeah, today's a Snoopy day. Mary kind of had a part in that too. So shout out to Mary as well.
Shout out to Rashawn's wife.
It's another year around the sun too, right? It's got the
That's a great way of looking at it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The
moon.
I'll go next because I see we've got a new watch on the couch, so I want to give that its proper shine. I'm wearing a watch I don't wear often. I wore this during the Ben Clymer episode. I'm wearing my 5054G Calatrava, the Paddock. A favorite of mine. I went so long without wearing this. It feels nice to wear it more frequently. I'm giving this a lot of love. I've worn it all week.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can borrow your words, tried and true. I just enjoy looking at it every day, looking at the time. And sometimes when I have some quiet time, I flip it over and I open the case back and I'm like, yeah, this is nice.
Yeah.
Ben, you've got a new watch. What are you rocking tonight?
I do have a new watch on. It is the Blancpain Swatch collab,
Woo!
which we all know I already got one of them, but I'm wearing the latest and greatest from them, the Ocean of Storms. So it's the all black on the black and white NATO. And I've worn it. I've had it 4 days now. I've worn it the last 4 days. And I didn't wear the other one long enough to really give like a just a due review.
Okay.
But after 4 days, I can say I kind of hate wearing it.
Okay.
Oh, yo, spill the tea.
It's
Looks
nice
great.
owning it. It's cool, right? Like Pokemon cards for adults now.
Sure.
Right? Collect all the Blancpain swatches. I think I'm done collecting them. I got the two nicest ones of the bunch.
You
I
got
feel.
the best ones. Yeah.
I just fucking bang it into everything.
Yeah.
It bangs into
It's a
everything.
thick
It's too
watch.
tall.
Yeah, it's kind of
And like I've never had that problem with anything I've ever worn
right.
except this. Like even
Yeah.
when I do like ding my watches on stuff, it's like, oh damn, like it happened once a week or
Yeah.
so, or maybe a couple times a month. This is like 3-4 times a day. And
It's-
just
The NATO
annoying.
gives
But
us
it
some
looks
hype, too.
cool.
I like the NATO.
Yeah.
People hate the NATO. So shout out to Schwartz and Romer. I think we got 3 of them in the bungalow because the 3 of us now have them. Schwartz and Romer immediately put it on a rubber strap. I don't like this watch on a rubber strap.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
I think the NATOs are perfect, and I don't mind this at all.
Mhm.
I think if I ever find myself going to a third world country, this is the only watch I'm taking.
It's the one that they do that looks,
Looks
as
the most like a
close
watch.
like an actual Blancpain. Yeah.
Yes.
It's really nice.
It does have the prettiest case back out of all of them, though, with like
Yeah.
the black little sleeve
nice.
slug.
It's super stealthy. Like,
Yeah.
I have an all black watch. It's a
But
surf watch.
All black watches look expensive too, for whatever reason.
I banged that one up the most.
Very true.
Yeah.
For sure.
Adam, you've got a watch on tonight. What are you rocking?
Yeah, I'm rocking my IWC Pilot Chrono 41. I spent
Nice.
the last 2 years wearing this bad boy. I have it in the green dial.
Yeah.
I'll get you guys a shot of that. But I love this piece. It came out during my time at IWC, and they were sizing down all the watches. Fine, I have baby wrists. I have Asian wrists, and so 43 is really the highest I can go. I think for a gala, I wore like a 44 perpetual once, but that's pushing it for me
Yeah.
for sure. So
No,
I
it's a
really
handsome
love-
piece.
Yeah,
a
thanks.
classic piece, and I love the dial color. These guys know I have an affinity for green dials. That's kind of
Yep.
like my jam.
We got
Do you have a
one, I got
favorite?
one.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite?
My Bel Canto,
Ooh.
Christopher Ward London.
Yeah.
I'm gonna need that in the pop-up. so I
I'll
can
we'll
watch it.
share a picture.
Yeah.
So getting into things, we met recently through a mutual friend, and we got to talk and realize that we have a few mutual friends.
So many. It's pretty funny,
And,
actually.
Yeah, you happen to be friends with Shahendra.
Yes.
Uh,
Mentor of mine.
yeah, no, he's a great dude who's also been on the show. And your background is interesting because you're in watches today. You've been in the luxury market, but you got your start at Ace of Spades with Roc Nation. I kind of wanted to ask you what that experience was like working with those guys, because
Yeah.
I know Shahendra is a big watch collector. Obviously, Jay is there. So I know there exists sort of like there's a watch culture running through that building.
Can't forget about Alex Todd.
Yeah,
Facts.
Alex.
Shout out to
Shout out
Alex
Alex.
Todd.
Alex.
What was that like working in that space for such an incredible brand, and being surrounded by people who kind of like exude, the culture,
Yeah.
love luxury.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
building this
Yeah.
brand, and they're wearing like these insane timepieces.
Well, I think actually, most of Rock love every single person at Rock. Honestly, they, I don't think they're necessarily flexing the AP on you,
Sure.
every day. But for sure, we had artists coming through the building all the time. Like Cole would have his kid over his shoulder, like
Oh, yeah.
look at all the workers, being sat at their desks. And he would always be, they're always wearing something nice. But and obviously Jay himself.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. The culture was pretty casual, but there's definitely an emphasis on style.
Yeah.
Right.
Like there's no dress code.
Yeah.
But then when you get there, first of all, I had no idea what I was walking into, and that's sort of another story. I applied to an internship, that was really I showed up in a sweater vest, you know what I mean? Because they didn't want clout chasers
Okay.
taking this job.
Yeah.
So I was originally going to finance and do banking, but then I on a whim applied for this job.
Mm.
Went to the address, ended up being Roc Nation. I was like, oh god. But it ended up going really well because I have a finance background, marketing as well, and so I think they wanted somebody that a hungry young person that could kind of do
Sure.
it all.
That could hustle.
Yeah. But yeah, so sorry, I was getting to the Roc Nation dress code. How it was put to me is like, there's no, you got to wear pants this length or whatever. It's like, it's just got to fly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I was like, what does
does
that
that
mean?
mean?
I was like, what does that mean? And, I was like I was pretty young, even younger than I am now at the time. And it was so confusing to me because like my worst fear was like, get
Showing up
shamed
to
for
work and
yeah,
not
having
roasted.
some corny fit, you know what I mean? Still to this day, it's one of my fears, but that's life.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I love Roc Nation and a ton of, I think, the cultural bridging really goes both ways. I think in many ways the culture needed Jay for
Yep.
sure.
Yes.
But also too, what the embrace of some of these luxury brands means for the culture is almost like it's a reciprocal acknowledgement, of how important they are. So I think in a way, where we could leverage, borrow and tap into the culture of some of these brands, we're also bringing them a cool factor.
Yeah.
Right. Of
culture.
course.
And so it's really this really
It's like a happy,
delicate
like,
balance.
Yeah, trade-off almost.
Usually,
Yeah.
sometimes.
Okay.
At least for the the bottom line.
Yeah.
Um,
So I'm
But yeah.
curious. You're spending a lot of time with these guys. I know there exists a watch culture. You guys have done an amazing job with Ace of Spades.
Thank you.
The LVMH acquisition happens.
It's crazy.
You make a transition into still in luxury, but you move into watches. How did the situation with IWC come about?
Well, so first, actually, when we got the news about the acquisition, we were some of the last to know. When you're within the company,
Sure.
when you're getting acquired, you're usually some of the last to know. You know what I mean? Because it usually has implications for who stays, who goes. Moet Hennessy has 1,000 CMOs and
Sure.
CEOs that they, shuffle around and things like that. So I think it started off with that, and they also needed help with the integration, right? You can't, just take a brand and just give it to other people to run. There's a lot of really on the ground things that needed to happen, and so we spent probably a year and a half working with Moet Hennessy, integrating this brand, because they have an obligation to make sure all the brands also have their own lanes,
Mm.
because I think.
You don't want to cannibalize your own product.
Yeah, for sure. And and we were coming at them hard. I mean, name another champagne that was really,
Yeah,
with
seriously.
the wave.
Yeah.
I mean, for the last 10 years, it was like Ace of Spades.
Yeah.
Was like
Yeah.
that was the name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And unless unless you're drinking Luc Belair,
Sure.
no hate. You know what I mean? But there's not really that many other options. Like Leonardo has a champagne.
Who?
Leonardo DiCaprio
that
has
was
a
a fun-
champagne.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think, what's interesting
you
is
know.
that what you guys have done is, sort of separate from all of those other brands.
Yeah.
You guys really created like your lane within the luxury space,
Totally.
right?
Totally.
And I think that's obviously why it was kind of like a no-brainer for like an LVMH, because here was a brand, Ace of Spades, like you knew Jay-Z owned it, but it almost towards like right before the acquisition, it entered a space where like the brand kind of stood on its own. You didn't really think about Jay all the time when you thought about Ace of Spades.
I didn't pay him to say this. All right? And that was a big goal.
No, I was not paid.
Yeah. We'll talk later. But no, that was a big goal from the outset. This brand, I mean, Jay's so busy. He can't be, peddling, this stuff. And, he's bigger than that, really.
Right.
I think Ace had a really interesting challenge where, unlike most luxury brands, we had a founder that was still alive.
Yes.
And very much participating in the culture. A leader, the leader, you know what I mean, of a lot of the space. And so, we had the challenge of distilling down, I think, some of the essence and what Jay meant to the culture, and kind of using that as a pillar for Ace. I think that was really successful because if this is gonna be something like he says for Blue and Blue's kids, all the kids. It's got to be something that can live without them,
absolutely,
and stand without them. So that was definitely a conscious effort.
I think also too, to that point, when you think of what you guys have been able to do at Ace, right? A lot of watch brands are trying to figure out the formula, and they're trying to figure out how do you meet the end consumer? How do you meet them on the ground level? Because when you buy Ace, it's almost like a trophy.
Oh, it is.
It is a trophy. It is a trophy.
It is a trophy.
And so
The
with
Rolex of champagne.
it is and so still Ace came out of nowhere, especially during the time of Cristal, Moet, and all these other guys. So it's like for you to be able to kind of like eclipse them to the point where either these guys have to play ball with you or they're just like out of the game. It's very impressive.
They play ball.
Yeah, they play ball.
They play ball. They play ball.
And there's a choice of words
cut
too.
the check.
Like you said, Jay's like a founder that's still alive.
Yes.
And that's
very weird.
But that's also it's an intentional choice of words because you said founder.
Yes.
All these other alcohol companies, a lot of these guys and celebrities that are behind them, they have nothing to do with the company. It's just in the commercials.
Yes.
They're just getting paid to be a face.
Yes.
And they're really just, nothing to do with it. Jay is he is Ace of Spades.
Yes.
And now the brand itself has transcended him as a person, which is the point, like you said.
Yes.
So you're there. You guys, the acquisition happens.
Yeah.
The brand is transcended.
on its way. On the S-curve,
You found an opportunity comes for you to join IWC.
Yes.
What excited you about entering the watch industry, and what did you feel that you had taken with you from Ace of Spades that you could contribute?
Yeah. I always loved watches. First of all, I'm sure probably like most of you guys, I love sneakers first.
Sure.
Like that was your first taste in the addiction.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, what he wearing? I was on the sneakers app for years for those. You know what I mean? Like that was the first kind of taste of the, I think there's that collector mentality.
Sure.
There's definitely the status, for better or for worse, the one-upmanship, of it all, which is tough to acknowledge, I think, sometimes. But that's kind of where it started for me. And then, when I started to get into luxury and quality, the concept of quality, I think, really stuck out to me. what is, the supreme, the not supreme is in the brand, but what is the highest level of quality, and why do people separate with their money?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And what do brands?
Mhm.
That's the value of the brand. It's
Right.
it's all emotional. It's it's why are you paying any more than the base cost for this
Mhm.
good? And it's all sort of emotional. And so I think watches, just like champagne, by the way. I think everybody here knows Ace of Spades or Montpellier was a very expensive champagne.
Yeah.
But so I was like, oh, is it worth it? But in my opinion, if that night really matters to
You
you,
getting
Yes.
the ace of
if
you getting
that
a
night
bottle of
really
Ace.
matters to you,
Yeah.
Yes.
people seeing you or people that matter to you, maybe, or even if you're doing it for yourself, I'd say very often people are getting their money worth. You know what I mean? And I think that's what I really loved about it. I felt like I was bringing happy moments in champagne.
That's awesome.
But and then for watches too. I mean, we were watching the resale market go crazy,
Mhm.
and it's like, well, why are people going crazy for this?
Mm.
Stainless steel Nautilus, is because it's recognizability, it's iconicity, it's all these things. So that's really where I wanted to go. And so actually there's a couple similarities too between the industries, because there's, in champagne, there's a lot of very undifferentiated old tired brands really
Right.
that have been there forever. It's a huge barrier entry in wine. You got to put grapes in the ground. First year, you don't see any return.
Mhm.
Second year, assuming you're going to grow, you put maybe 2 times the grapes in the ground. Still haven't seen any return. 3 years, right? Depending on how old your wine is, right? It's a very high barrier to entry. So for Jay to be able to do that, I think was really groundbreaking. And you can see the results because he had the capital.
Yeah.
But yeah, coming into watches, sorry, where's I going with this?
We're talking about similarities. Between
Yeah, similarities. Watches. There's also a huge barrier to entry, but there's a lot of brands really killing it.
Yeah.
And really, those are the brands that are independent. They're differentiating themselves,
Mhm.
Mhm.
at all price categories. And so, I think in the middle, there's a huge band of brands that I think are struggling at the moment to differentiate themselves.
Yeah.
And so, I really wanted to bring. I'm an EQ guy.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I'm very different from the Swiss and the Swiss Germans. I'm a big picture thinker. I'm an emotional guy. I like to bring kind of the IQ to the EQ parts of this. I think it's super important in luxury, and so that's why I wanted to go into kind of watches, because helping these brands differentiate, find their own space, like kind of distill what they're about.
Yes.
From an emotional sense. I think
Mhm.
that's really fulfilling for me. So that's why I wanted to.
So what about IWC really said that to you? Like, this is a place where I could fit in and make it happen.
You know what? The funny thing is, I didn't think at all about fitting in, which, in hindsight, maybe would have been a little helpful. But actually, I wanted the opposite. I was, Ace of Spades is very much on one end of the psychographic spectrum, and then IWC, if you know watches, is pretty much on the other. It's one of the most understated. Kind of the understated confidence. We do the humble goats like Lewis Hamiltons, the Tom Brady's, and,
Right.
that's always been our niche. I gotta stop saying our, but I left IWC, for those who don't know, last week. Shout out to the IWC team.
Sure.
They're amazing. Much love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got to work on a pretty big release of theirs.
Yeah, the Ingenieur.
The Ingenieur
Yeah.
was re-released, and talking about a brand, especially talking about that time, the last 2 years in watches has been kind of crazy,
Mm.
right? And you have these well sought after models that are iconic for their own reasons. The stainless steel integrated sports bracelet craze,
Mhm.
right? And so enters IWC with bringing back the Gerald Genta design
Yeah.
Ingenieur
Yeah.
to kind of piggyback on that,
Mhm.
as well as they should, right? Because here within your line lies a model that his DNA is actually attached
It's
to.
a gem. It's a blessing.
Amazing opportunity.
Mhm.
What was that like, and how excited were you when this project actually came about?
Did you guys like the Ingenieur?
I love
Before
it.
we even started there.
I like the watch. I think it's too expensive, but I like the watch.
Come on, they putting up polos for 73K.
And I think
you're
that's
ripping me over
absurd.
11.7.
Yeah, I do,
A
and I'm gonna
polo
tell
at
you why.
72K is ridiculous. I think that's
that's
absolutely absurd.
ridiculous. I think the Ingenieur, I like it a lot. I've tried it on several times. I've seen every version of it that there is.
The
That's
green
out there.
dial is amazing.
I
You
think-
saw it on Hove?
Alex sent me the picture.
Yeah, I still think it's too expensive.
Yeah.
If it was like, it's what, 11.7, right? Around
Mhm.
12. If it was like 9.8, I'd be like,
Sure.
So
sign me up.
we have to give a little bit of a backstory, right? And now life is very relative because the dots connect. So we were filming an episode. I can't remember which episode it
It was
was.
with Todd, Alex Todd.
It was with Todd, but when you got the photo, I think we were doing another episode.
No,
Oh, you got the photo.
was
He gave you the
there.
photo right then.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the crazy thing
He
is
was one of
that
like the first one. ever.
so Perry seen the photo or got the photo, and it was the first one because the Ingenieur hadn't been introduced yet.
Yeah.
And Perry was like, "Yo, an Ingenieur is coming out," and he's like, "I seen it,"
Yeah.
and we were like bugging out. And then come full circle, you are the reason why that watch was on Jay's wrist, which is nuts.
I mean, like
I see the tinfoil hat. and the-
yeah, the
It's-
Illuminati. Yeah.
It's just like it's crazy how, Wrist Check Pod is, we in those conversations, like we having them and we doing them.
Dude, I hope Jay is watching right now. Honestly, because I think
I think he'll see it.
I hope Well, I mean, it makes me nervous personally. Really.
He'll probably get
Well,
laugh
he
out
got 4 fans on the couch.
Yes.
Facts.
He's got
Big
fans
fans.
everywhere. He's got fans
Yeah.
everywhere. But yeah, I mean, like, I hope you guys in your private lives, I hope people are giving you your flowers, because I think the reason why I really was excited to come on is because being on the inside, we need people like you guys. We
Yeah.
really need people like you three.
Thank you.
And the support team over here, just like diversifying the conversation.
Yeah.
Because it's true.
Yeah.
Everyone's buying watches.
Everyone's buying watches, and I think the interesting thing about, and why I wanted you to you here with us tonight. Shout out to our other friend over in LA, Todd. But I see a lot of the dots connecting to Rashawn's point in the sense of what you guys have done and accomplished at Ace of Spades is similar to what we are trying to accomplish in the watch industry, and it is very important to your point that representation in this industry is felt, that there are voices that are heard, that there are voices that have authority, right? And so I want to ask you, I want to go in a little bit about that in terms of, because of some of your contributions and what you guys have accomplished, the landscape of the luxury market is changing.
So fast.
You look at what Pharrell has accomplished, you look at what Virgil, the late
My
Virgil,
God, I
had
know.
accomplished.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think what you guys have done in Roc Nation in terms of just even venturing off into spirits, and I'm sure there's a whole host of other things that was accomplished there, really laid down the groundwork for others to sort of chip in and do their part.
Totally.
What did it feel like to kind of witness that? Did you realize what you were seeing at the time? I know sometimes you can kind of be in the middle of it, you don't get it because you're in the routine. But looking back on it, right, and seeing what you did, looking at what you were trying to accomplish at IWC, what does that sort of make you think about the landscape of luxury? Are you optimistic for what's happening? Are we going to get through whatever these challenges are? I kind of want your perspective on that.
Yeah, let me think about that. I mean, I think first thing first is I will say that I was but a small part of an even smaller team that really helped put Ace together and bring it to what it is now. My CEO, CMO, all my mentors, they really taught me so much. And I like to say that I set the strategy for that, but for me it was absorbing the strategy and understanding why it was significant, and really it helped me realize, I think, my place in the world too, because I was born in LA. I'm West Coast. I was raised in Hawaii, but spent the last 10 years here in New York. And so for me, it's always been like I've always been like a bit of a third culture kid. You know what I mean? And so my value, I really feel, at least when my boss catches me, scrolling Instagram, or whatever, is that like I'm keeping my ear to the ground, because that's the really important part of it. It's not what we as the brands think of the culture; it's what the consumers think.
Right.
And that's something that I think that the industry broadly is learning. You know what I mean?
Do you feel like they're at a point where they're becoming more receptive to that?
Totally. I mean, by hook or by crook.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because I think at the end of the day, the big groups are publicly traded, or everyone's a bit financially motivated, and so you see them making big efforts for, like, Lunar New Year. You see
Yeah.
them making efforts to collaborate,
Mhm.
with the culture. Like, you see Montclair, doing their thing with Jay-Z,
Mhm.
Yeah, that's big.
all kinds of stuff. So
I mean, even AP and
Yeah.
Travis Scott,
yeah,
are
I
big. It's
mean,
huge.
yeah, but there's still a lot of people that are like, oh, I don't know if that was the right move. I'm like, dude, they pre-sold what? How many of those?
All of them.
Yeah,
All
all of
200.
them.
Yeah.
Do you know what that
Accounts.
is in revenue? Like, that's crazy.
Yeah. Well,
200 times 201,000.
we
40 million.
Yeah.
we had just came from the Cartier event. Perry
Yeah.
had mentioned it earlier.
Shout out Cartier.
Shout out to Cartier. And we hung out with Erica. Shout out to her, because she's like the head of, like, D&I, and kind of like bridging the gap of, like, the culture to the French, and them kind of like understanding, right? And we had like a side conversation about, like, wires and Buffys and all these kind of things, not understanding that, like, these sunglasses are someone's trophy. Like, they will go ahead and they'll buy a pair of wires or buy a pair of Buffs and not put gas in their car.
Was that the $3,000 Cartier shades?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen
Like,
those. I'd be down.
Yeah, for a pair of
simultaneously,
bucks? Hell yeah.
you have to
Pink
understand
lenses.
this is not small potatoes.
Totally.
For someone to go ahead and do whatever it takes to get these products, that's important. And the fact that that's overlooked, there's a disconnect.
I mean, I'm trying to process what you're saying, and I totally agree. I mean, I think if anything, it shows how important standing out is to humans.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, people are willing to put it in front of.
I think especially regarding, like,
lot of things.
American culture, right? I think
Yeah.
this is something that I think, like, the Swiss and the French haven't gotten a full grasp on.
Mhm.
They should, is how important identity is to the American
Yes.
psyche
Yes.
Totally.
via product,
Yes.
Mhm.
experiences, right? Like, that is truly the American way,
Yes.
right? Like, we process our identity and who we are through objects.
The American
Mm.
dream.
That's what it is.
Mm.
And it's really that I think that we talk when we talk about the culture. There's different cultures in America, but the culture at large is identity,
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And identity through luxury, whole nother ball game.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that you said that I really appreciate when talking and reflecting on Ace of Spades is you said, if this night is important to you,
Yes.
if the people that you're sharing this evening with
Yeah.
are important to you, that goes back to talking about identity. How do I see myself this evening?
Mm-hmm.
Do I see myself as an Ace of Spades guy?
Mhm.
I should be.
Yeah.
Bring the bottle.
Some days you drive your Bugatti. Some days you drive your Ferrari.
But that
some
whole
days you wear
idea
your
of aspiration,
Swatch
Yes.
Club.
you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
I think that's something that you guys really tapped into. And I think the watch industry at large, I think obviously there are players that know it. Rolex,
Yes.
Patek,
Yes.
AP, very clearly get it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a lot of brands, I feel like, get lost in their sauce,
Mm-hmm.
right? Trying to play catch up with them, not really understanding how are our consumers identifying themselves through our product.
Totally.
We're not them.
Yes.
Totally.
Who are we?
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So your time at IWC, I imagine that similar things were going through your head. You're wearing an IWC. I understand that you understand what that brand is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What was it like, conveying that message to them as you see it? Because you're coming in with a whole nother perspective, right? So your cultural lens,
Right.
completely different.
Right. I think so. That's a great question, because I lay awake at night thinking about marketing.
Yeah.
like I'm such a nerd. I can't
Yeah.
even tell you. Like, Super Bowl commercials are like some of my biggest. I love the concept of brands and marketing, and that's really what motivates me. That's really what my calling is.
Mm.
Specifically luxury brands, but brands in general.
Sure.
Everything from Charmin Ultra to whatever. But I think speaking about brands and identities, I think it's something actually that I think the marketing playbook has learned, but not necessarily maybe if you studied it 30 years ago.
Right.
Because in reality, like, we can have, let's take a brand. Like each brand stands for a certain bunch of things, like, like Ace stands for, success, right? It shows for celebration, right? No one's drinking that champagne alone, you know what I mean? And it also stands for also, psychographically, breaking the breaking the glass ceiling, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And those kind of things. And that's what it means to a lot of people too. So, I think you can choose to bring many things with you into your brand identity, or you can choose to sharpen your brand identity. And so what I mean by that is, like, for example, take a look at, Louis Vuitton, right? What they are doing right now is they're standing on pillars of, craftsmanship, of omni-relevance, like, omni-relevant, trustworthy, you know what I mean? Luxury and those kind of classic things. And it's always a good bet. And it's also culturally relevant, it's omni-relevant. But they dropped how French they were. You know what I mean? It's not about how French you are. It's not about must be this French to ride. You know what I mean? It's about different things. And so, when you have certain brands from certain regions, or, is that cultural identity, which inherently comes with tone implications, background implications, all these things, is that necessary for your brand?
Yeah.
And a lot of the times it's not. In fact, I would argue in today's day and age,
It's not at all.
people should be trying their hardest to really distill that identity, because the more distilled a brand is and what they stand for, the more holes they can fit through, if that makes sense.
No, I love that.
Yeah. It's like brushing your teeth with like a really old toothbrush, or one that's like brand new, like I should replace this a while ago, 'cause, like it works, and it works. It really, really works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So yeah, I think brands in general and with the culture are starting to understand that, what they stand for has to be something that is irregardless of race, religion, socioeconomic status, orientation, all these things.
right.
Yes.
It's really about what's a universal emotive nature that you can tap into.
Something that connects you regardless of all those differences.
Like desire for success, in Ace,
100%.
celebration.
Did you see that changing in the watch community at your time at IWC, or even within IWC as a brand, since you were already on the inside?
Yeah, I think, first of all, there's many reasons why, IWC and Richemont brands are good at what they do. I could not do the role of anyone else on my team, like really, really well and truly. There's a reason why they're so successful, and I've been doing it so long. But I'm proud to say that I think, in my time there, as a zillennial cusper kind of person, we speak truth to power. And so that was, for better or for worse, that was, guys, I'm like, guys, do we really like, do we like this, or what is it saying about us, or, hey guys, we need to be looking at the music space, things like this. And so I think in general, getting them to think of a product as an emotional good versus a product where the value is based more, physically and tangibly, I think was an important thing that we talked a lot about. In fact, IWC team, if you're still watching this, is a presentation I made. Go check
There we
it
go.
out. Still in the files. I made it like my first month in.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, what I mean? Like, because, the way, if you, sell me that watch, I think a lot of people would try to sell it to you the way they sell Charmin Ultra. It's got, 2-ply versus 4-ply, and it absorbs this much water.
Yes.
But in reality, it's like, no, none of that value.
It's an
that's
emotional
technical.
connection.
Yeah.
The tactical part, yes.
Technical doesn't work for everybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
The technical doesn't work for everyone.
It's important. It's important.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it is a non-negotiable.
Sure.
Especially at the luxury end.
But that should be the bare minimum, because like you said, it's a non-negotiable.
Right.
The
Exactly.
technical should already be good.
Right.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be a part of your identity.
Yes.
It should just
No.
be something that you're already good
Because you
at.
still have to feel good about wearing it.
Yeah.
You still
Yes.
got to feel good about using it.
Yes.
Like one thing my LT used to say, he would go, "Why does your wife buy a Birkin bag?"
Mm.
And it's like, oh, well, and he's like, it's not for the leather quality. You know what I mean? The leather quality has to be there.
Sure.
Has to be provable. Has to be legit.
Mhm.
But in the end, it's about all these other
It's
things.
status.
Yeah, it's all about
For
status
sure, or
and
something like that.
what it means.
Yeah.
So that's why I love marketing. It's
Yeah.
like, how do you just
How do you tap
So
into
on
that?
on that
yeah.
topic of marketing, like let's take like AP with Travis Scott,
Yeah.
IWC with Lewis,
You
and
see that
Virgil.
friend? You see the mic drop?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Do you think a lot of brands that could also be using marketing and these like celebrity endorsements, athlete
Totally.
endorsements as like a cop out to their identity also?
I think if you're not careful, it can get really confusing because I think you need to understand what AP stands for,
Mhm.
and then once you understand, like, what's another?
I think a perfect example is AP because a lot
Yeah.
of people who get it know that Travis Scott collab, like we said it, take the watch aside, the
Mhm.
collab made perfect sense
Mhm.
from the beginning. This is Francois was already doing 20 years ago with Jay,
Yeah,
with
yeah,
Shaq,
yeah.
Muhammad Ali.
Muhammad
then
like,
you
Ali.
go
those
like
niggas, he
Yeah.
did it.
Yeah.
Travis makes perfect sense for this.
what doesn't make sense is like Breitling and Giannis.
Right.
Yes.
I don't get it.
So
Bradley's making
that's,
moves.
like,
They got
tricky.
Victoria Beckham. and
They're
all
making
stuff.
some cool
Yeah.
stuff.
I don't think
Victoria
that makes
Beckham don't make
either.
sense.
I think a lot of that's another topic too. It's like,
Yeah, but that's kind of like
Yeah,
what
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
asking. Like,
Sorry,
and
you're
you answered it well too. It's like if you don't know the brands, like a lot of these new people are like, why would AP do a Travis Scott collab? It's like you don't know any better. We got it. You're new here. Get out. But like we just said, like Breitling and Victoria Beckham, like wow.
Come on.
Well, like, if you want to do the exercise with me, like, let's put on our thinking hats here,
Mhm.
right? Like, what are the qualities you associate with Travis Scott? And then what are the qualities you associate with AP? And like, where are those
Immediately,
overlaps?
I
Like,
think
where are they
the
supporting each other?
overlap is the music identity for sure.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Before Travis
Yeah.
Scott collab was even announced, AP made a music themed watch.
Yep.
yeah.
Right?
I remember that one.
So there's already two overlaps. And then I don't want to compare Jay to Travis or Travis to Jay at all. But I mean, Perry's older than me. Perry knows that at that time, Jay in music, he's a GOAT now, but at the time he was like, oh shit, like Jay, like he's the one.
Yeah, it was a big
Like
deal.
in 10, 15 years, Jay is going to be it. And he's done it. In
Yeah.
10, 15 years, kids that are I'm 28. So my generation, millennials and younger, like, yo,
Oh, the same
Travis
age.
is it
Yeah.
in 10, 15 years.
I think
So that's
also like
another
a really
overlap.
good overlap too is fashion.
For
right?
sure.
Like what Travis has contributed to fashion,
Mhm.
and AP has done collabs with high fashion designers, where they've debuted their watches on runway.
Yeah.
Like, so just culturally, there's a lot of overlaps
it
that I
makes
think, to
total
your
sense.
point,
Mhm.
it makes total sense for them to work with the Travis Scott. It's part of their DNA,
Yeah.
right? Like they've already stepped into these fields. It's like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I push back on that
Please.
respectfully? So like I
Disrespectfully, challenge.
no,
me.
not at all, not at all. Because the way I think of it, the way I see this as from a brand perspective is those are all things that AP has done in the past.
Mhm.
They made a music dial. They've collaborated with Jay-Z. They've had a history in this thing,
Mhm.
but in a way that one of the things I was trying to also talk about too is history is not the same as identity today. Take a good example. I think IWC, shout out IWC, much love, has heritage in, fighter pilots, right?
Mhm.
In aviation, in motorsport,
Sure.
in so many things that are really, really incredible. But in the end of the day, it's not that you have to be a pilot to buy an IWC. It's not that you have to be a driver to buy an IWC. But I think all of those things all that history is a credential on why the brand is able to speak, have an authority on the emotion of the understated confidence or the
Right.
emotion of the daring, or the emotion of
Mhm.
kind of that, I could say this, but like big dick energy, you know what I
Sure.
mean? Like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And so that way, in these histories, these things are not your identity today per se, but they support the way that your brand is perceived
Yeah.
Sure.
today. And so like taking it from history things, but putting it towards like what emotions do you feel from AP? Like maybe they like challenge convention,
Mhm.
And I think that's certainly
They definitely
one.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
They definitely disrupt that.
yeah.
whole-
Oh, big
Disruptive.
time.
that whole,
Yeah.
even,
Like
even like-
brutalist.
yeah.
Yeah.
Even
So
like
that's what I want to like. I love what you guys are saying, and then I just want to like push a step further.
No, that
It's
makes
like,
it, it makes
But
it makes total
IWC
sense.
even does that, right? Like they drop those
Yeah.
like the Lake Tahoe edition.
yeah,
And then even the
Love
like
Lake
the
Tahoe.
fighter weapon school,
Yeah.
like big pilot watches with the stamped dials.
Yeah.
Only thing is you couldn't get the damn thing for.
I mean, I
Well,
tried to
this-
get a fighter weapon school
Yes.
pilot, and I got played.
Come on, Adam.
I had
Damn.
nothing to do with
I
that.
got played on that one.
Well, there was also I don't know how many pieces they made, but there was a BLM watch that was made as well.
Don't talk about it. I mean, honestly, I don't know
Mic
about
drop.
it. So I don't want to. I don't want to comment. I don't want to comment.
Must
But
be true.
you know, you're at another spot in your career where you're transitioning. So you
Yes.
left IWC
Yeah. hmm
and you're going to Jacob, which I think is awesome.
And also makes
Yeah.
total sense.
It makes a lot of sense.
I'm fired.
But what I want to
Yeah.
ask you, before we close out is, and these guys might have some questions too regarding, but what are you excited about with Jacob? Because, I know people feel away. I love Jacob.
5-time zone.
I think
Sign me
Jacob.
up.
The
I
OG
think
with
Jacob-
We need to make a wrist check pod 5-time zone.
That would be
collab.
great.
That would be
What's up?
crazy.
We got a lot to talk about once you get there, but
Yeah. We'll definitely.
I'm
think that.
excited for you. What does it feel like to, move into this next space? Because here's a guy, the company's named after him. Your founder's alive,
Yep.
right?
Alive.
Has that amazing history and tradition with the culture.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Unafraid, to try new things. He's still
Yeah.
a challenger brand,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
What does this feel like?
To have the opportunity to join this team and starting next week. So, fingers crossed, I'm really excited about it. But creative is very, very hard. And I think undistilled creative
Mm,
or, unadulterated creative is even harder in
Mm.
today's day and age. And, to look at somebody like Jacob, who, whether or not it's your style, he's creating,
Yeah.
he's really creating and he hasn't
is.
stopped. He
No,
hasn't
hasn't
ever
slowed down at
stopped.
all.
It is so hard, I think, at least for me. Like, if I ask you guys, like, think of a new color right now, you're like, think of something that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I'd be like,
Yeah.
I'm not really sure, but Jacob's been doing it consistently. And I think also too with Ben, his son, the new CEO at the helm, I think they have a much younger, more plugged in perspective on things, and I think the future for them is very, very bright.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to know that you're going there because you're here for me.
Yes.
We'll figure out. I think a wrist check pod
First
5-time
order of
zone would
business.
be pretty
Uh,
awesome.
And we need the removable
So
diamond
Jacob,
bezel,
we're
too.
coming.
Yeah. You buying?
Um,
You're buying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I want to say thank you for joining us this
No.
evening.
Okay. Yeah. Of
This
course.
has been
Thanks for having me.
fantastic.
Thanks
Yes.
for having me.
I'm glad Todd connected us. I knew that this would be a really good episode. I've enjoyed our conversation. And at some point, I think we'll have to have you come back as a guest co-host.
I would love that.
Yeah,
Anytime.
and we
Yeah,
get to
anytime.
have some more fun talking about watches.
Yeah.
For those watching and listening, you know where to find us. We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wristcheckpod.com,
Yes.
Instagram, TikTok for the children.
And closer to the metaverse.
We're every
No,
day
we're
we get a
not.
little bit
Yo.
closer to the metaverse.
Bit closer.
No, we're
This has
not.
been
Yeah.
great. I want to say
I mean-
again, thank you, Adam.
Thank you guys. Thanks for having me.
And
Appreciate it.
we'll see you in 2 weeks. Later,
Awesome.
guys.
Let's go.
Peace.